In Genesis 38, we see this story of Judah and Tamar. This seems an odd story. Why put this story in here? Sometimes, as I often say, the scripture gives us the good, the bad, and the ugly. It doesn't try to hide anything. But at the same time, it doesn't give us every detail, right? Oftentimes it skips over quite a bit of time in between passages. So whatever's put in there is put in there for a purpose. So we understand something. And I think with this story, which is, as I said, an odd one, the brothers die and are supposed to take Tamar as their wives. But the first one dies, and the second one God gets angry with for not giving her children, so she's supposed to be the responsibility of the third brother to marry, and he doesn't want to marry her because he's afraid that he's going to die too. Now, this might seem odd to our Western sentiments, that marriage should be based on love and emotion and things of that nature, and we often don't see the obligation to bear children. Or in this culture, that would be the Abrahamic covenant would be to multiply them as a people, right? So there was an importance of having children, and there would be a responsibility, a corporate responsibility to one's family, that if their wife were to, or if you were to die and their wife was left, that you wouldn't leave her barren, that you would marry her, support her. Remember, in this culture, that women can't support themselves, so to not marry her is to basically leave her to beg or to prostitute or to die. And so this is kind of what we see is Tamar here tricks Judah through prostitution. And he says she is more righteous than I. How? She tricks him into prostitution. Well, he was supposed to give his son in marriage to her. So he doesn't follow what he's supposed to do. He doesn't really, out of faith, believe, right, that God is the one in control, and doesn't realize that, that perhaps the judgment was upon his sons prior to that for their actions. But the bigger picture that we should remember is not to disobey God's law, not to try to say, hey, I'm afraid, or what if this happens, or to try to circumnavigate around our duty. We don't like that word in our culture today, duty. We have a responsibility, right? Now, it might change. We don't have the same responsibility then to marry, because remember, there's two things: multiplying the Abrahamic covenant, the descendants, and also through that line would come the Messiah. So to not fulfill this obligation is basically spitting in that idea of the multiplying of descendants, and also of the Messianic line coming through you. And so obviously there was a call there was a duty there, an obligation that they neglected. So let us not neglect that and try to think of crafty ways around our duty and obligation. But we're happiest when we fulfill that with a cheerful heart. Whatever it is God calls us to, it might not always be fun, but we'll rest with a clear conscience knowing we did the will of God.